What happens when an organization has great policies, strong procedures, and well designed controls, but the people running them don't have the right skills, training, or support? That's exactly what COSO Principle 4 is about. Welcome back to this series on the 17 principles of the COSO Internal Control Integrated Framework. In this series, we're breaking down each principle in plain language, not just for auditors, but for management, risk leaders, executives, and board members who need to understand how internal control actually works in real organizations. Today we're looking at Principle 4, which sits under the first COSO component, the control environment. Principle 4 says the organization demonstrates a commitment to attract, develop, and retain competent individuals. It underscores the importance of talent when it comes to designing and operating a control environment. In plain language, this means an organization needs the right people with the right skills in the right roles at the right time to achieve its objectives and design and operate an effective system of internal control. A system of internal controls will have policies, approvals, reconciliations, and IT controls. These support people in the operation of the system of control, but designing them and operating them still depends on the people involved. People need to actually understand what they're doing and why it's important. These controls are often judgment-oriented and include some escalation pathway for exceptions identified. If managers are inexperienced, if reviewers lack technical knowledge, or if key roles are constantly vacant, then controls may look good on paper, but fail in practice. Principle 4 is about making sure the organization can hire competent people, train and develop them, support them as responsibilities change, retain key talent, plan for turnover and succession, and make sure people are capable of carrying out their control responsibilities. A simple way to remember this is controls are only as strong as the people who operate them. Principle 4 belongs to the control environment. This is the foundation of the entire COSO framework. The control environment embeds the organization's culture, leadership expectations, structure, accountability, ethics, and people practices. This principle matters because even a well-designed control environment will break down if the organization doesn't have competent people. Think about it this way. Principle 1 focuses on integrity and ethical values. Principle 2 on board oversight. Principle 3 on structure, authority, and reporting lines. And Principle 5 on accountability. So Principle 4 is the bridge between organizational structure and individual performance. You can't hold people accountable if they were never properly selected, trained, supported, or developed in the first place. The COSO objectives, operations, reporting, and compliance, are the three areas that are typically represented in organizational objectives. For operations, Principle 4 means the organization has people who can run processes effectively and efficiently. If employees lack the right skills, the organization may experience delays, service failures, safety problems, or even quality issues and customer dissatisfaction. Reliable reporting depends on the people who produce the reports, but also the people who produce the data that feeds into the reports and the people who review and validate the information. The organization must have people who understand the data, the systems and tools that process the data, performance metrics and definitions, the review procedures and checks, the documentation requirements, and the reporting standards. Challenges can lead to inaccurate reports, missed errors, unreliable decision-making, and regulatory compliance exceptions. Leading nicely to compliance. Principle 4 means employees understand the laws, regulations, policies, and contractual obligations that apply to their roles. Without proper training and awareness, people may unknowingly violate privacy, safety, financial, organizational, or external industry requirements. When Principle 4 is weak, organizations often experience a very familiar pattern. Good policies on paper, poor execution in practice. If you see role descriptions that are vague, or not comprehensive, or have gaps. If staff comment or complain about insufficient or inadequate training. If staff turnover is high in a key area. Or if key process knowledge is retained in someone's head. These are signs that an organization may have competence challenges. Some examples of how this might manifest. A company may have a formal approval process, but the person approving transactions can't articulate fully why they're approving certain edge case transactions. A compliance policy may exist, but frontline staff can't explain how it applies to their daily work. An organization may launch a major new system without ensuring staff have the skills to use it properly, like maybe a new analyst is made responsible for a key report, but they struggle to describe specifics about the data source schema. A key employee leaves and you notice an increase in exceptions in a critical process they were involved in. In all of these cases, the issue isn't just a people issue, it's an internal control issue. So, what would strong controls under Principle 4 look like? Look for role-based competency profiles. This means key roles have documented expectations for education, experience, technical skills, judgment, and control responsibilities. Identify a structured hiring and onboarding process. This includes proper screening, credential checks, reference checks, standardized interviews, and role-specific onboarding. Management should monitor training completion. It's not enough to assign training. Leaders need to know whether people actually completed it and whether overdue training is being escalated. Supervisors should perform performance and quality reviews. They should look at errors, missed deadlines, rework, complaints, and control failures to identify whether there are skill or capacity gaps. When training or expertise gaps are identified through monitoring or reviews, quick corrective actions such as targeted training, coaching, increased supervision, or formal remediation plans should be implemented. Engaging external specialists or subject matter experts through a robust contract could help to offload some of the risk. This could be short-term while the organization develops the skill set internally, or it could be a long-term arrangement depending on appetite. An auditor looking at Principle 4 would want to know whether competence is being managed deliberately, not informally, accidentally, or only when problems arise. They may look for evidence such as current job descriptions and competency matrices to clarify roles, hiring and onboarding records and credential verification for effective talent acquisition, training plans, remediation plans for skill gaps, and completion reports to ensure skills are up to date, performance evaluations and succession plans to mitigate risk of performance degradation. Other things to look for include turnover analysis and sharing of employee engagement survey results, quality review results, and board or senior management reporting on talent and workforce risks. At a higher level of maturity, the organization should be able to show we know what competence we need, we assess whether we have it, we develop it, we retain it, and we act when gaps appear. That's the maturity test for Principle 4. For management, Principle 4 means competence is part of your control responsibility. You should ask yourself, do I understand the objectives of my role? Do I know which risks and controls connect to my work? Do I have the training, tools, and support to do my job properly? Do I know when to escalate? Also, am I keeping my knowledge current? And am I speaking up when I don't have the capacity, clarity, or competence needed to perform a task effectively? This principle is a reminder that being busy isn't the same as being effective. Experience is not the same as current competence, and good intentions aren't enough to protect the organization from risk. For auditors, Principle 4 means looking beyond whether a control is documented. Auditors need to ask whether the people operating the control are actually capable of doing it effectively. A reviewer may sign off on a report, but does the reviewer understand the report? A manager may approve access rights, but does the manager appreciate segregation of duties? A team may complete a reconciliation, but do they understand the exceptions that they've signed off? The auditor should also watch for red flags like, only one person knows how to do this. We haven't updated training since the system was upgraded. The reviewer signs off, but it's kind of a formality. Yeah, this role's been vacant for a bit. Or, we promoted someone into the role 6 months ago, but they haven't completed their onboarding training yet. These are all signals that competence risk may be affecting internal control. For the board, Principle 4 is about oversight of talent, capability, and succession risk. The board doesn't manage every hiring decision, but it should challenge management on whether the organization has the people needed to execute its strategy. The board should be asking, do we have the talent required to execute against our objectives? Are employees being trained for new systems, regulations, and business models? Are there any key person dependencies? Are we launching any major initiatives before we have the competence to manage them effectively? Do we have succession plans for critical roles? Are turnover or vacancies creating any risk? At the board level, the key message is simple. Strategy depends on capability. If the organization doesn't have competent people, its objectives and its controls are at risk. So, to summarize COSO ICIF Principle 4, the organization must show a real commitment to attracting, developing, and retaining competent people. That's part of the control environment, because no matter how strong the policy, how detailed the procedure, or how advanced the system, internal control ultimately depends on people who understand their roles and can perform them effectively. A simple takeaway is, strong controls require competent people. Thanks for joining me in this exploration of COSO ICIF Principle 4. Leave a comment below and click the like button if you found this useful. Subscribe for more videos on this topic. And in the next clip, we're going to round off the COSO control environment looking at Principle 5, accountability, how organizations hold individuals responsible for their internal control duties.